The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. It was a relentless, mournful sound, the kind that seeps into your bones and stays there. When Elias boarded the last train out of Holloway Station, the clock on the wall showed 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes to midnight. The platform was utterly deserted. No cleaners pushing their squeaky carts. No late-night stragglers rushing for the last connection. Not even the usual flicker of the digital ad screens. There was only the low, distant hum of electricity and the lonely echo of his own footsteps on the wet tile, a sound that seemed to mock his solitude. He stepped into Kaffa. It was as empty as the platform had been, and Kola, too. A chill hung in the air, making the vinyl seats glisten with a thin film of condensation. Even though the air inside felt unnaturally dry, he chose a seat near the middle of the carriage, facing forward, and watched the door slide shut with a metallic sigh that sounded almost human, almost weary. The train began to move, a slow lurch at first, then gathering speed, plunging into the tunnel's darkness. Elias glanced out the window, expecting the familiar blur of tunnel walls and the rhythmic flash of emergency lights. But what he saw made his blood run cold. He froze, his breath catching in his throat. There were no tunnel walls. No lights. No passing stations. Instead, black, churning water rushed past the glass, as if the train had been submerged, plunging through the belly of a drowned, lightless ocean. The view was distorted by ripples, and for a terrifying, fleeting moment, he thought he saw shapes moving beneath the surface. Long, sinuous limbs, wide, unblinking eyes. Things that belonged to the deep, forgotten places of the world. He tore his gaze away, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He tried to rationalize it, to tell himself it was just a trick of the light, a reflection on the rain-streaked glass. But when he looked at the window on the opposite side of the carriage, his reflection wasn't his own. Or rather, it was. But it wasn't. Reflected in the dark glass was the image of a man sitting exactly where he was, in his very seat. But this man was facing him. He wore a drenched trench coat, identical to Elias's own, and his dark hair was plastered to a deathly pale forehead. Water dripped from his chin onto his chest, forming a dark, spreading stain. And his eyes were fixed on Elias, wide and unblinking. A jolt of pure terror shot through Elias. He whipped around, his head snapping back to look at the seat behind him. It was empty. The cold vinyl was undisturbed, glistening under the fluorescent lights. He scrambled to his feet, his legs feeling unsteady, and began to back away toward the connecting door to the next carriage. He had to get out. He had to see if anyone else was on this train. But just as his hand reached for the door handle, the lights stuttered. They flickered once, twice, then plunged the carriage into absolute darkness. In the Sudan, suffocating black, a voice crackled to life over the intercom. It was a distorted, gurgling sound, as if the speaker was gargling salt water. Next stop. Home. The voice was warped and wet, echoing in the confined space. Elias's mind raced. Home. There was no home station on this line. He knew the route by heart. He'd taken it 1,000 times. There had never been a station called home. The train began to slow, its wheels screeching against the tracks in a sound that was both metallic and organic, like a scream. Outside the window, through the inky black water that still rushed past, a platform began to emerge from a thick, gray mist. It was old and dilapidated. The concrete was cracked and covered in a green slick of algae. The benches were rusted through, skeletal frames against the gloom. A single, naked bulb flickered weakly above a sign, its light barely illuminating the peeling white letters that spelled out a single word. Home. No city name, no street name, just home. With a final, drawn-out hiss, the doors slid open. A wave of cold, briny air rolled into the carriage, carrying the scent of seaweed, salt, and something else. Something older, something like damp earth and decay. And standing there, on the platform, facing the open doors of the train, was a man. He wore a dry version of Ilyas's own trench coat. He had the same haircut, the same posture, the same weary slump of the shoulders. He had the same face, Ilyas's face. But the eyes were wrong. They weren't the tired, human eyes Elias saw in the mirror every morning. These eyes were full of black water, deep and bottomless, reflecting no light, only an endless, abyssal void. The figure on the platform smiled, a gentle, almost sad expression. He raised the hand, not in a threatening gesture, but in a calm, patient invitation. Elias watched, paralyzed, as the doppelganger's lips moved, forming words that carried no sound through the open doors. Yet he heard them perfectly in his mind. "You've been gone so long," the silent voice whispered. "It's time to come back." Elias tried to step back, to retreat further into the carriage, to slam the emergency button, but his feet were cemented to the floor. He was rooted to the spot, a prisoner in his own body. The train gave a final, cheerful chime, a stark contrast to the unfolding horror. Doors closing. The automated voice was crisp and clear. But Elias didn't get back on the train. He couldn't. He never left the platform. His feet, finally released, took a single, shuffling step forward onto the cracked concrete of home. And somewhere, deep beneath the sleeping city, another empty train pulls into Holloway Station. The clock on the wall ticks over to 11:58 p.m. Its doors slide open with a sigh, inviting the damp night air inside. It sits, terra-cold and vacant, waiting patiently for its next passenger. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment with your own spooky travel experiences, and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe out there, and maybe check the station name before you get off.